are these people?
Everybody get a big bag of popcorn because it's sweeps week for Psyop season, everyone. Have you heard? We're gonna lightning round this real quick, and we're gonna go through a bunch of stuff here. First, friend of the show, Jack's Page. While everyone was arguing about Charlie Kirk, the surveillance company Oracle, their stock went up massively yesterday, rendering Larry Ellison now the richest man in the fucking world. That we know of course. He said, I honestly don't think that we know the name of the richest man in the world's name. My guess is that its last name begins with an R and ends in Rothschild. All right.
Yay,
and
capitalism.
Here it is in US dollars. That was pesos. But they went up 33% over a 5-day jump. All right. And this is billions of dollars. All right. Here's a more perfect union. Larry Ellison's net worth grew $100 billion in less than an hour, and he's now the richest person on earth with over $388 billion because of his extremely rapid stock market rise of Oracle, which we know is the CIA software company. And he predicts the rise of the modern surveillance state, where citizens will be on their best behavior, is now the richest guy in the world. And oh yeah, his son's organization is now trying to buy Warner Brothers Discovery after already buying Paramount to have one of the largest content libraries in the history of the world. Right? So that is Jack's Page and Larry Ellison. Fuck that guy. We mentioned this earlier, but Alan McLeod said it was incredible to see the Charlie Kirk shooting receive about 100x more coverage than the Israeli assassination of the Prime Minister of Yemen and their entire cabinet too. Fucking wild. So again, Alan writes for Mint Press. They did a funding drive. They raised over $25,000, but they have been an incredible outlet, platforming people like Alan McLeod, Kit Clarenberg, Robert Inlakesh, Low Key, Minar. In the past, Whitney Webb has published there. Jessica Buxbaum has published for them. They've done some incredible articles. We've used them a lot on this show. So support Mint Press if you can. Next. Now this one's pretty interesting. Again, psyops everywhere. So we're going to go worldwide. A lot of people talked about the unrest in Nepal. And that there was possibly a color revolution developing. That you had a lot of the youth upset. And that they burned down the parliament and were starting to make arrests. And that the president flees the country. And this had a lot of the makeups and characteristics of a U.S. intelligence community-led color revolution. And I pointed that out, and a lot of people did. However, journalist Arnaud Bertrand, who lives in China, and he's usually an advocate for the East and challenging of the West's narrative, says, I lived in Nepal during a few months, a stunning country that's near and dear to my heart. I was notably there during the 2015 earthquake, a time when one of the main leaders of the current Gen Z protests lost a child, which was the trigger for his activism. I've seen the corruption. In fact, the truth is that formal government structures barely function in much of Nepal. Outside major cities, the state is much more theoretical than real. It was crystal clear during the earthquake, but also at other times. For instance, I've seen with my own eyes that when a petty crime occurs, people don't call the police, but resort to mob justice by default, and it's not pretty. The people are left to care for themselves almost entirely on their own. He says, additionally, Nepal has the single most challenging geography in the world, which, despite everything you hear about countries having agency, shapes virtually every aspect of national development. Nepal has the world's most difficult terrain, the world's strongest storms because all the clouds from the Indian subcontinent come crashing into the Himalayan wall. I've experienced dozens, and believe me, it's scary. Village streets are transformed in torrential rivers in a matter of minutes. Nepal also has regular earthquakes. How do you think the Himalayas got created? They're landlocked, a buffer state between two great powers, and they're at India's mercy for virtually all imports and exports due to the Himalayan barrier with China, which I witnessed firsthand when India brutally decided to impose a blockade after that 2015 earthquake to express a disagreement with a constitutional amendment, which made a horrible humanitarian disaster even far worse. So, good luck with all that. To say that steering such a country towards prosperity would take extraordinary statesmanship is the understatement of the century. Arnaud says, I see many people reflexively saying that the current protest movement is a US-backed color revolution, with, having briefly looked into it, no convincing proof that I can identify. Except that Victoria Nuland was there a couple of months ago. Or was that in Indonesia? I don't remember. I'm not so sure, given the country's crushing constraints, what would even be the point of orchestrating a color revolution in a place with such geography? He says protesters' apparent enthusiasm for Balendra Shah, Kathmandu's mayor, further undermines the color revolution theory. He's a Nepali anti-India patriot with zero background related to the West, who won the mayor race as an independent in 2022 on a platform of fixing drains and fighting corruption. That sounds to me a lot like Zelensky, honestly. He's not promising to realign Nepal with the West. He's promising to function traffic lights and demolishing illegal buildings. And he won't even lead the protests, claiming he's beyond the Gen Z age bracket. A color revolution with a chosen leader who doesn't want to lead and whose patriotic views are inconvenient to U.S. foreign policy? Hard to believe. But for the sake of argument, let's say it's true. What would the U.S. gain? Even at the height of the colonial land grabbing, after having won the Anglo-Nepalese War in 1814-16, the British, which colonized rocks in the Atlantic just to have them, took a hard pass on colonizing Nepal. Though they were impressed by the Gurkha fighters, who to this day form regiments in the British Army, which incidentally adds yet another handicap. Nepal's finest fighters, say that 10 times fast, are contractually obligated to other nations. Occam's razor means that the more likely truth is that Nepal's dysfunction doesn't require a foreign orchestration. Its circumstances guarantee it for free. And in any case, the point is largely moot, because even a successful color revolution would be a Pyrrhic victory for everyone involved. The U.S. would gain influence over a government that can't govern in a country in which you can't base meaningful assets and from which you can't project power over China anyhow. India wouldn't care. They've already proven they can economically strangle any Nepali government that displeases them. China would shrug behind its Himalayan wall. And the Nepali people would wake up the next morning with the same impossible geography, the same dependence on India, the same unforgiving terrain. I don't want to end this point on such a deterministic note and make it sound like Nepal is condemned to a fate of perpetual misery. He says the Nepali people I met were among the most resilient, ingenious, and warm-hearted I've encountered anywhere. They've survived everything geography throws at them with remarkable grace. If any population could eventually find a way to make the impossible merely difficult, it would be them. The protests, whatever their origin, show this, that despite the odds, the younger generation still believes in a better future for their country. That in and of itself is the most important fact about these protests. More than who organized them or what foreign powers think, and that spirit, if channeled properly, is perhaps the most important asset Nepal has that doesn't depend on geography or geopolitics. I think that's a little kumbaya, personally. He says, last word, please go visit Nepal. Visit the Everest Base Camp. Visit the birthplace of Buddha. Take a trek in the blooming rhododendron forests of the Annapurna. Go watch some of the last wild rhinos of Asia. Eat some of those delicious momos. Your tourist dollars won't solve Nepal's structural issues, but they'll meaningfully help people living real lives, and you'll have the trip of a lifetime in the process. Geography might have dealt them a difficult hand for development, but it also created one of the world's most extraordinary places and people. So I wanted to bring that as another viewpoint, because a lot of people are saying this. The U.S. is running a color revolution in Indonesia, the world's fourth most populous country. Now, there they have motivation, don't they? More than Nepal. This follows the country's refusal to show sufficient hostility to China. The unrest, positioned as a Gen Z protest, has spread to Nepal. So, this is a video, all right? It's 10 minutes long. I'm not going to play this video, but there is solid evidence here that that's playing out. There's probably music behind this, but let me try. Yep, I figured there would be. What proof is there that U.S. agents are behind the violent protests in Indonesia? Protests that are now threatening to spill over, rising in Nepal, blah, 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 and other places too. We're going to give you some mind-blowing details from internal documents. These came from meetings involving the notorious National Endowment for Democracy, the NED or CIA spinoff, and they show direct links for the U.S. involvement and protests in Indonesia itself. Right, but first,
10 signs that you can see for yourself that reveal the involvement of foreign forces. Number 1, US color revolutions always have colors. In Hong Kong it was black and yellow, in Ukraine orange, and in Indonesia at the moment pink and green. Always have chosen colors for people to wear and use on symbols. Number 2, US sponsored protests always co-opt youth and women. And this one is being marketed as a Gen Z protest and as a women's rights protest. Here's the ED Times pushing the women's angle. Who sponsors the ED Times? An American company, Google News, not an Indonesian company. Number 3, US sponsored protests always have a list of demands. In Indonesia, just as in Hong Kong, the protesters have 5 demands, not one less. Number 4, US sponsored protests always adopt a song and visual pop culture references. In Indonesia, like Hong Kong, they have a specific song. In Hong Kong, they used a racist frog image. And in Indonesia, they're using a symbol from a Japanese cartoon. Number 5, US-sponsored protests always provoke the police into action and then blame them for taking action. And that's exactly what we're seeing in Indonesia, just as we saw in Hong Kong. Number 6, US-sponsored protests always have the quiet distribution of a code, ACAB or 1312, to encourage hate against police officers. We saw it in Hong Kong and we're seeing it in Indonesia. It stands for all cops are
bastards.
Number 7, US-sponsored protests always have a key news image of one person confronting a row of riot police. Here's the Indonesian one. Number 8, US-sponsored protests always have paid agents who rush to present the wrong information. Here's a rather well-known one, blaming China. Number 9, US-sponsored protests are always attached to genuine grievances. And then lazy journalists highlight the grievances and omit any references to the US playbook. Here's the BBC doing that, and here's DW doing the same.
And now?
Number 10, the above details are not a conspiracy theory. We have been given a set of internal papers from 2023 which reveal that the US political meddling groups which worked in Hong Kong for decades have also been active in Indonesia for years. The existence of certain internal documents from US operations in Jakarta was first revealed by Mint Press News in 2023. But we recently got a similar set of papers and did a detailed study of them. What they reveal is astonishing. I'm going to share just 8 pieces of text from them. Number 1, if the presidential threshold is removed, there will be more candidates in the presidential election and US will have more options. The US will have more options. Why is it important for the US to have more options? Isn't the US a country on the other side of the world? It's actually quite funny that the US weaponizes the concept of democracy against other nations while literally choosing who will lead their countries. I know, right? Number 2, in the same document comes an even more shocking line. US Embassy suggested that Labour Party could avail itself of the opportunity of Independence Day to launch protests. So there we have a direct quote in which the US Embassy proposes that a local group launch protests. That line itself is a smoking gun of pretty huge proportions. Number 3, the good news is that some Indonesians clearly realised that something improper was happening. Consider this line in one of the documents. Catherine mentioned that BIN has recently warned US Embassy not to interfere in Indonesian elections. Now this is followed by an assertion that they're going to use other 3-letter organisations to get past the rules. US Embassy plans to continuously support TAF and IRI programs to further implement US policies while avoiding Indonesian regulations. Again, it couldn't be clearer. The US in Indonesia is using groups to implement US policies while avoiding Indonesian regulations. That's what it says. But wait, as the TV commercials say, there's more. Number 4, in a separate document dated 2 weeks after the one I just quoted, there's other information linking the United States to what will be reported by the media as local grassroots protests. This week, under the direction of US Embassy, IRI contacted leaders of Labour Party, Partai Buruh, and several labour organisations, and then it names several groups, to discuss plans to organise protests against omnibus law on job creation and presidential threshold. So get that, the plan to organise protests were put forward under the direction of US Embassy. It's another smoking gun right there.
So I think it's pretty clear, and again, this has another 4 minutes to go. It's pretty clear that we led a color revolution in Indonesia, that the playbook exists, all right? And Nuri Vatachi made a heck of a video there. I've never heard of this guy. He's written for the New York Times, runs Hong Kong's Friday media project. So he's had his run-in with color revolutions himself. All right. So that's Indonesia. And who knows what the hell's going on in Nepal. But certainly things are popping off worldwide. Now, on top of that, you had mass protests in France. Here's less than a minute out of Breakthrough News, another indie media award honoree. Sorry?
Another One Piece sign. They've been using that in Nepal a bunch too.
This is Paris.
Yeah, I know. And in comes the tear gas.
Yeah,
or CS gas.
Mass protests have erupted in France in a show of anger against proposed social services cuts by Macron and the French political elite. This is for cutting services, not for arresting citizens on the street and disappearing them. Look at him throw it, dude. The French go hard.
Fucking good for them.
The French go hard. Ha ha ha.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then we also have our friend Descent in Bloom. I believe she's in chat now. Oh, by the way, while everyone was glued to the Charlie Kirk shooting, the Senate Republicans voted 51-49 to block the release of the Epstein files on the same day. Funny how that slipped past the headlines. Funny how that's got almost 17,000 likes. That's what you call going viral. Holy shit. My phone would never stop. I can't imagine. So, Psyop season. Well, we've got Psyop fatigue. And we've also got a shirt that goes with that called We Deserve Better Psyops. So, if you go to IndieNewsNow.com and you click on the shop, all right, you can pick up this shirt for yourself, $20. They have them in black also, in other colors. The black is a couple of bucks more, I believe. Maybe not.
Look at my shirt, little bitch.
That's right. Buy my merch. So, and it's got the little INN logo on the back. Right, and there it is. We deserve better psyops in black shirt. That's a killer shirt. That was a suggestion, I believe, by Anna Mayers. Said we should have a shirt that says that. I made it. She bought it as a tank top. It's also available as a tank top and as a sticker, by the way, also at the Indie News shop. And finally, we had a little bit of good news about Stop Cop City. Go to another Indie Media Award honoree, Unicorn Riot, unicornriot.ninja. Judge finds Attorney General can't bring RICO charges in the Cop City case. Now, this could have implications nationwide. A Fulton County judge found Tuesday that Georgia's Attorney General lacked the authority to bring racketeering charges against protesters named in the sprawling Cop City RICO case, calling into question the foundation and future of the massive legal effort to criminalize a movement. And I'll put the link to this in the description. I'm not going to read the whole thing. So that was our quick little lightning round. Flew through some of that stuff. Again, support the media you want to see. That is our wall of fame. If you're able to, at a means, Cash App, $, Indie News Network, go-fi.com/Indie News Network. Got paypal.me/Indie News Network, IndieNewsNow.com, where I just said you can see this stuff, all these articles that I've covered today, just about all of them. You can find somewhere at IndieNewsNow.com. It kind of goes through a live feed, and we're also live there. Finally, I've got the GoFundMe's. All right, Shanda saying back on September 4th that she had officially started round 2 of radiation. All right, she was getting zapped and it was hurting. So if you're able to contribute to her GoFundMe, she's raised over $3,700 and she's going to need more. Really appreciate anything that anybody can do. I'm going to drop that into the chats right now. And again, a link will be at the Substack with all the links for everything that we've shown tonight. We do that every week. We, again, try to support independent media by letting people link to and find all the things that we show on this show. And then we have another audience member, a friend of the show, member of the family, Cowboy Kitty, Anthony Malecki. And let's not forget his sister-in-law, Natalia, who is facing deportation to Ukraine right now. She came here seeking a better life. Okay. Fleeing an abusive ex-husband who threatened to kill her. Now they want to send her back. All right. She's being abused by the fascist police state, held in prison indefinitely. She could really use your help. And as Descent in Bloom reminds people that they're moving to separate her from her child by removing her from the U.S. While living here, she's applied for a green card. She's been paying taxes and doing everything the right way. But Ohio sheriffs turned traffic stops into deportation pipelines for profit. We covered that several weeks ago, reading a Descent in Bloom article about what the Ohio police are doing and different counties and how they're playing this game with ICE to enrich themselves and detain immigrants. Okay. And the GoFundMe for this one is right here, linked in Descent in Bloom's post. Yeah, that's right. That's right, Bellin. What the fuck, dude, is right. It's a crazy story. All right. It was over a traffic stop that she didn't even have an expired registration. They claimed she did, but then detained her because they found some potential violation, and she's been detained for months. Her car's already at an impound. She's not. I'll show everybody. Here's what Indie News Now looks like. It's got a big header, different links at the top, and then below it is an endless scroll of news and videos and information, all from independents. All right. This is about, I think, Rick wrote The Most Musical Man in the World, written by Ted Joy, the Honest Broker. You've got the Rubin Report. The Reese Report, not Rubin Report. The Reese Report with Greg Reese. You've got Due Dissidents in there. We've got Sam Carlin from Left Voice and Scott Horton, who some people like, some people don't. It's okay. There's always going to be some sources that you disagree with in there. but we try to bring in real independents that are user funded, that don't take the corporate dollars, that don't take advertiser dollars, that are trying to get the story right from the ground and from the people that are actually experiencing it. So check
Go to
out
my website.
check out IndieNewsNow.com. Again, we're live there, and you click on the merch, and you end up at the merch store, which is right here, and that's where you can pick up all the different items at the merch store. So, man, that's pretty good timing. 5 minutes to midnight. Nice. Good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Good to see you, Mastermind Hour, Road Pirates.
Isn't it the name of a Pantera song?
5 minutes to midnight? It just might
5
be.
minutes to midnight?
It just might be.
Seems like someone's got a fucking song like that.
Yeah, that's
You know?
that's right, Bellin. Dude is exactly right about what's happening to Natalia. It's a crazy story. And kudos to all the other channels that have continued to try to showcase it and call and support her and get more people to support her GoFundMe. Yeah, please. Oh, by the way, speaking of Dissent in Bloom, he wrote an article yesterday talking about propaganda in media and propaganda in U.S. media, and I was able to co-publish with her on that because she used some of the Dominic Michael Trippi stuff that I had published a couple of months ago, and then did her own research and added a bunch of stuff that I had not gotten, like about his DUI and the fact that he had to blow into a breathalyzer to start his car, or that his company had sued him and that he paid that company $5,000 after he had left for lying and claiming commissions or whatever it was. But then there was a cease and desist order that they had taken against him, and changing a business name, and looking, apparently his company is housed at his quote unquote company is housed at a location that is shady as shit. So go read the Dissent in Bloom article about propaganda as well. DissentInBloom.substack.com. Support independent media. I really appreciate that. All right. So one last time before we get out of here, again, Cash App, $, Indie News Network. Go-fee.com/Indie News Network. Again, thank you to Sean the Accord Lord for the contribution over there tonight. PayPal.me/Indie News Network. IndieNewsNow.com, which you just saw. And then at IndieMediaToday.com, where we're live now. And at INN Newsletter, where we're going to go live in a few minutes.com. INNNewsletter.com, not that whole word.com. Anyway, that's over on Substack. And by the way, I've been having big issues with Substack and still am. And thank you to everybody who's been screaming at Substack about that. I did get a little bit of a response from them, but it really wasn't satisfactory. And they're kind of dragging their heels and not really trying to fix the problem. I still can't cross-post consistently and regularly any article that I want. I love you all. Support independent media because we need it more than ever. And we will see you real soon. Take care, everyone.
See you in a bit, fam.
Hasta la vista. Hasta la vista, baby.
No! We just fucking lost the stream!
Can keep giving us nothing and think we're bluffing about coming for your heads. Why play civil if you won't listen? 50,000 died, and now we know our mission. We form a militia, make Congress a prison.